Yash had always been the kind of boy who walked through the corridors of school without expecting anyone to notice him. His existence was quiet, almost invisible, swallowed by the noise of students who laughed loudly, walked confidently, and carried the kind of personalities that demanded attention. Yash wasn't like them. He was simple, average, the kind of student whose presence was never questioned or missed. People in school often said that every class had one such student, the one who blended into the background effortlessly. And Yash believed he was exactly that. But what nobody knew, not even his closest friend, was that his quiet heart had been holding one name for months: Khushi, the class topper. A girl who seemed to live in a world untouched by flaws, hesitation, or fear. Khushi was everything Yash wasn't. She was bright, confident, the kind of girl who made teachers proud without even trying. People admired her dedication, the way she participated in every activity, answered every question, and smiled as if she carried sunshine inside her. Yash admired her from a distance, not because she was perfect, but because she made perfection look effortless. There was something gentle about her, something that didn't demand attention but naturally received it. Her presence made people sit straighter, her sincerity inspired others to study harder, and her kindness made even the bitterest students soften. For Yash, liking her wasn't a choice. It was a slow, quiet realization, like noticing the warmth of sunlight after a long winter. At first it was just curiosity, then admiration, and slowly it turned into something deeper. Every time she solved a doubt for someone, every time she offered a smile, every time she tucked her hair behind her ear while focusing on her books, Yash felt something move inside him, something close to hope, something close to longing. But he had never told anyone, not even himself fully. His heart resisted accepting the obvious. He had a crush on the class topper. Yash always felt that crushes were meant for people who could be noticed, people who had something to offer. He didn't think he was one of them. His grades were average, his confidence low, and his voice barely reached beyond a mumble in class. He didn't believe someone like Khushi would ever know someone like him existed. But life has its own ways of surprising people, sometimes in the most unexpected and gentle ways. The story began shifting on a random morning when their class teacher assigned a new seating arrangement. Yash had always been seated in the last rows, partly by choice and partly by the natural order of things. Students who weren't active or academically strong always ended up at the back. But that day, the teacher had a different plan. She wanted to pair weaker students with toppers for a group learning project, something that would help raise the overall performance of the class. Nobody expected what happened next. The teacher called out names, pairing one topper with one average student. And when she reached Khushi's name, she paused for a moment, looked at the attendance sheet, then pointed toward Yash. Khushi, you will sit with Yash for this month's academic support program. Yash felt his heart drop, then rise, then freeze altogether. For a moment he wondered if he had misheard, but the slight widening of Khushi's eyes confirmed the truth. Students whispered with shock. Some boys chuckled, some girls gasped, and a few looked at Yash with that teasing expression that made him uncomfortable. But Khushi simply nodded politely and picked up her books, walking toward his bench. She sat beside him with a soft smile that made Yash forget how to breathe for a second. Not many people get to sit beside their crush without expecting it, and Yash certainly never imagined this moment would ever belong to him. The first few minutes were awkward. Yash couldn't look at her directly, and Khushi seemed unsure how to start. She was used to mentoring students who actively approached her, not boys who were too nervous to speak, so she broke the silence. Do you mind if I sit here comfortably? She asked gently, even though she was already seated. Yash nodded quickly. Yes, no problem at all. His words tangled like threads. But Khushi didn't laugh. She never laughed at anyone's discomfort. She simply opened her notebook and said, "It's okay. We'll figure this out together." And that moment, that simple line, planted something inside Yash that felt like the beginning of something hopeful. Day by day, their interactions grew in small but meaningful ways. Khushi wasn't just a topper. She was patient, genuinely interested in helping him understand concepts, and surprisingly easy to talk to. Once Yash found the courage to speak more than 3 words at a time, she explained things calmly, repeated them without frustration, and never made him feel inferior. Instead, she said things like, "You already understand more than you think," or "You're capable of doing better," or "Just practice. I know you can do it." Nobody had ever spoken to Yash like that. Her words didn't just teach him, they healed him. He found himself studying more, not because he wanted marks, but because he wanted to live up to the faith she unknowingly placed in him. When a girl like Khushi believes you can do better, the world suddenly feels like a place where impossible things can happen. And slowly, Yash began surprising himself. He answered questions in class confidently for the first time. He completed assignments early. He even stayed after school to revise chapters he used to ignore. All because one girl sat beside him with an encouraging smile. But what Yash didn't know was that Khushi was noticing more than he realized. She saw the way he listened carefully, how he silently practiced problems even after she thought he had stopped, how he tried to hide his nervousness whenever she praised him. She noticed his sincerity, his humility, his genuine desire to improve. In a world where students often competed fiercely, Yash was the kind of boy who supported others quietly, who wished well for everyone, who didn't want to be better than others, just better than his own yesterday. Khushi found that rare and refreshing. One afternoon, when the sunlight fell softly over their open notebooks, Khushi said something that made Yash feel like his heartbeat had found a new rhythm. You know, you're not like others, she said thoughtfully. Yash looked up, confused. What do you mean? She shrugged lightly. You don't pretend. You don't compete unnecessarily. You're just real, honest. People don't appreciate boys like you enough. Yash felt warmth rise in his chest. He had never expected the topper to describe him with words that felt almost precious. He didn't know whether to smile or stay quiet, so he chose silence, the kind of silence that carries gratitude. Days passed, their bond grew deeper in ways neither of them said aloud, but both of them felt. Students teased them sometimes, but Khushi never let it affect their study sessions. She simply smiled and continued teaching Yash, and with each passing day, Yash felt his feelings for her deepen, not out of admiration for her intelligence, but out of respect for her kindness. Then came the day of the monthly test results. Yash had never expected miracles, but when the teacher announced his marks, the class turned toward him in disbelief. Yash had scored higher than he ever had. Not topper level, of course, but impressive enough to shock his friends and surprise his teachers. And when he looked to his right, Khushi was already smiling at him with the kind of pride that made his chest tighten. She nudged his arm lightly and whispered, "See, I told you could do it." But the moment that truly changed everything came after school that day. Students had left, the classroom was nearly empty, and the evening breeze carried the fragrance of nearby flowers. Yash was packing his bag when Khushi walked up to him slowly, almost hesitantly. He looked up surprised. She bit her lip for a moment, then said softly, "Can I tell you something?" Yash nodded. "You know, when the teacher paired me with you, I thought I would just help you study. I didn't expect to learn something myself." Yash blinked, confused, learned what she looked directly into his eyes, and he felt something shift in the universe. That quiet students aren't weak. They just haven't met people who listen. And you made me realize that sometimes the most genuine people are the ones who speak less. Yash didn't know how to respond. His heart felt too full, too overwhelmed. Khushi continued, "You worked hard. You never gave up. And I like that. I admire it." Her cheeks flushed slightly. "Actually, I admire you." Those words hit Yash harder than anything he had ever experienced. In that moment, he understood something beautiful. Sometimes life doesn't wait for you to be extraordinary before giving you moments that feel extraordinary. Sometimes it simply rewards sincerity. He finally found the courage to speak. "Khushi, I thought you would never even notice me." She shook her head gently. "You don't have to be loud to be seen, Yash. The right person will always notice." And just like that, something unspoken yet deeply meaningful passed between them. Something neither of them labeled, but both of them felt warm, gentle, real. From that day onward, their bond wasn't just about studies anymore. It was about understanding, mutual respect, and a connection that grew naturally, without force, without pretension. Yash no longer felt invisible, and Khushi no longer saw him as just an average student. She saw him as someone worthy of admiration. And that is how Yash's crush, the class topper Khushi, became someone who didn't just guide his studies, but unknowingly touched his heart, taught him confidence, and showed him that sometimes the most unexpected connections become the most meaningful stories. A story where a quiet boy found courage, and a topper girl found sincerity. A story where admiration turned into friendship, and friendship turned into something even more precious. A story where Yash realized that even the quietest hearts can be heard by the right person. And this story, without dramatic scenes or forced moments, flows the way real feelings do, gently, silently, and beautifully.